After 38 years raising our children alone, my husband said, "I'm back with my ex. You have 5 hours to pack and get out of my house." I just smiled. 5 minutes later, he got a call from my lawyer about the forged deed transferring our $380,000 home. Before we continue, subscribe to the channel and comment where you're watching from. We'd love to know how far our stories are going. My name is Michelle Hayes. I'm 62 years old, and I live in Cedar Falls, Iowa, in a brick house on 847 Maple Street. The address number isn't a coincidence. It's exactly how many thousands of dollars I spent raising 3 children while my husband, Richard, was working temporarily in Chicago. Temporarily turned into 15 years. It was December 18th, 2018, a Tuesday. The kind of morning where the cold bites through your coat before you even step outside. I was in the kitchen, washing the breakfast dishes from a meal I'd eaten alone, as I had for the past 475 mornings. The yellow light bulb over the sink flickered. It always did when the wind picked up. I'd been meaning to replace it since 2014, but there were always more urgent things. Brian's car insurance, Melissa's bar exam fees, Amanda's student loans. The knock on the door was sharp, authoritative. 3 knocks, then silence. I dried my hands on the faded blue towel hanging by the stove and walked to the front door. Through the frosted glass panel, I could see a silhouette I hadn't seen in 2 years. Tall, slightly hunched at the shoulders now. The last time he'd appeared was Christmas 2016. He'd stayed for dinner, eaten my pot roast, and disappeared before dessert. I opened the door. Richard stood on my porch with a woman I didn't know and a leather suitcase I'd never seen. The suitcase was Italian, caramel-colored, with gold buckles that caught the weak December sun. It must have cost $800, maybe more. Richard had never owned anything worth $800 in his life. Not when we were married, not when he left, not ever. "Michelle," he said. Not hi. Not how are you. Just my name, flat and businesslike, like I was a clerk at the DMV. The woman next to him smiled. She was maybe 58, with blonde hair pulled into a tight bun and a burgundy wool coat that looked freshly pressed. Her nails were painted red. Her boots had no salt stains. She didn't belong in Cedar Falls. "This is Vanessa," Richard said. "My fiancée." I didn't move. I didn't blink. I just stood there in my 12-year-old cardigan, the one with the pulled thread at the right elbow, holding the damp dish towel, staring at the man who'd slept in my bed from 1981 to 2003 and then vanished like smoke. "Can we come in?" he asked, but he was already stepping forward. I stepped aside. They walked into my living room, the one I'd vacuumed yesterday, the one where I'd hung stockings for grandchildren I rarely saw because Brian was too busy, and Amanda lived 3 states away. Richard set the Italian suitcase down on my brown carpet, the one I'd bought in 1987 when we still said we. Vanessa perched on the edge of my couch, the floral one I'd reupholstered in 2010 using YouTube tutorials because I couldn't afford a professional. She looked around the room like she was appraising livestock at a county fair. "Michelle," Richard began, "we need to talk about the house." I set the dish towel on the armrest of my recliner, the recliner I'd bought at a yard sale for $40 after Richard left, because I couldn't afford a new one. I sat down slowly. My knees cracked. They always did in winter. "What about the house?" I asked. Richard pulled a manila envelope from his coat pocket, the kind lawyers use, the kind that means trouble. He opened it and slid a paper across the coffee table, the table he'd built in 1989, back when his hands still did useful things. "This is the deed," he said, "signed in 2005. The house was transferred to me." I picked up the paper. It was official-looking, stamped, notarized. My name was on it, or something that looked like my name. The signature was loopy and confident, nothing like my cramped handwriting. The date read March 14th, 2005. In March 2005, I was working double shifts at the elementary school cafeteria because Brian needed $3,200 for community college tuition, and Richard's child support checks had stopped coming. "I don't remember signing this," I said quietly. "Well, you did," Richard said. "And now Vanessa and I are ready to move in." We're giving you 5 hours to pack your things and leave. 5 hours. I looked at Vanessa. She was smiling, that same tight smile from the porch. Her red nails drummed on the arm of my couch. This is my house, I said. I paid the mortgage. Alone. For 15 years after you left. Richard shook his head. The deed says otherwise. We've already spoken to a lawyer. Everything's legal. Legal? The word sat in the air like a grenade. I looked down at the paper again. The signature. The notary stamp. The date. I thought about 1995 when I sold my grandmother's gold bracelet and my wedding ring to pay for Brian's emergency appendectomy because Richard's insurance had lapsed. I thought about 2008 when I refinanced the house alone, sitting at a bank desk in a blouse I'd worn to 3 funerals because it was the only one without stains. I thought about 2015, when I made the last mortgage payment and cried in my car in the bank parking lot because after 33 years, something was finally truly mine. And now this man, this stranger with an Italian suitcase, was telling me it had never been mine at all. I stood up. My hands were shaking, but my voice wasn't. Get out, I said. Richard blinked. Michelle, get out of my house. Vanessa stood, smoothing her coat. Mrs. Hayes, I understand this is emotional, but the law... I said get out. Richard picked up the suitcase. They walked to the door. But before he stepped outside, he turned and looked at me with something I'd never seen in his eyes before. Not anger, not regret. Something colder. You always were easy to fool, he said softly. Then they were gone. I locked the door. I walked to the kitchen. I picked up my phone, the one with the cracked screen I'd been using since 2013 because new phones cost $600 I didn't have. My hands were still shaking. I dialed the number I'd memorized 3 weeks ago, when Brian called to ask if I'd co-sign a loan for him, and I'd said no for the first time in his life. He'd been furious. You're supposed to help family, he'd shouted. I'd hung up and called a lawyer the next morning. Gerald Chapman's office, a woman's voice answered. This is Michelle Hayes, I said. I need you to check something. Someone just showed me a deed to my house. The signature isn't mine. There was a pause. Keys clicking on a keyboard. Mrs. Hayes, we pulled the county records yesterday after you hired us. There are 3 deeds registered for 847 Maple Street. My stomach dropped. 3? Yes. One from 2008 when you refinanced. One from 2005, the one you're probably holding. And one from 2011 that we just found. All 3 have different notaries. I sat down at the kitchen table, the same table where I'd fed my children oatmeal before school for 22 years. Who filed the others? I whispered. We're working on that. But Mrs. Hayes, I need to tell you something. The 2005 deed, the one your husband showed you, it was filed last week. Someone backdated it and pushed it through the system on December 10th. December 10th, 8 days ago. That's fraud, I said. Yes, ma'am, it is. What do I do? You stay in that house. Don't pack a single box. We're filing an emergency injunction this afternoon. And Mrs. Hayes, if your husband or anyone else shows up, you call the police. I hung up. I sat in the silence of my kitchen, the kitchen where I'd baked 38 years of birthday cakes, where I'd cried over bills I couldn't pay, where I'd drunk coffee alone every morning since 2003. I thought about Brian, about the way he'd been acting lately. Cold, distant. The way he'd asked about the house's value last Thanksgiving. Just curious, Mom, he'd said. I thought about Amanda, who'd stopped calling 6 months ago, who'd posted pictures on Facebook with a woman I didn't recognize, a blonde woman in expensive clothes. I pulled out the deed Richard had left on the coffee table. I looked at the signature again, and then I saw it. The M in Michelle. Too rounded, too confident. It looked like someone else's handwriting. Someone who'd watched me sign documents before. Someone who knew what my signature was supposed to look like but couldn't quite replicate the way my hand cramped when I wrote. The phone rang. I looked at the screen. Unknown number. I answered. Michelle? A man's voice, not Richard. Younger. Who is this? A pause. Then, it's Brian, Mom. I'm calling from Vanessa's phone. We need to talk. Mom, don't hang up. Brian's voice sounded tight, like he was holding something back. I could hear traffic in the background. He was in a car. Why are you calling from Vanessa's phone? I asked. Because I knew you wouldn't answer if you saw my number. He was right. Mom, listen. Dad and Vanessa are serious. They have lawyers. Real ones. They're going to take the house. I gripped the phone harder. Brian, that deed is fake. I never signed it. Silence. Too long. Brian. Mom. His voice dropped. I was there. The kitchen tilted. I put my hand on the table to steady myself. What do you mean you were there? In 2005, March. You were at work. Dad came to the house with some papers. He said you'd signed them earlier but forgot to get them notarized. He asked me to witness it. My throat closed. You witnessed a signature that wasn't mine? I didn't know, Mom. I was 23. I didn't look closely. He said it was just paperwork for refinancing. He said you knew about it. I thought about March 2005. Brian had been living at home, sleeping until noon, playing video games in the basement. I'd been working 50 hours a week to keep us afloat. So you helped your father forge my signature. I didn't know it was forged. His voice cracked. I'm trying to help you now. That's why I'm calling. Help me? You just told me you committed fraud. Mom, please. Vanessa's planning something bigger. She's been talking to Amanda. They've been messaging for months. Amanda thinks... He stopped. Amanda thinks what? She thinks you've been hiding money. Vanessa told her you have savings accounts you never mentioned. That you're being selfish. I laughed. It came out harsh and bitter. Selfish? I sold my wedding ring to pay for your appendix surgery. I wore the same coat for 8 winters because you needed college textbooks. Where exactly is this hidden money, Brian? I don't know, but Amanda believes it. She's coming here tomorrow, to Cedar Falls. Vanessa's bringing her. My youngest daughter, the one I'd driven 6 hours to see graduate from nursing school in 2015, because she'd said it would mean everything to have me there. The one who'd stopped calling in June, right after I'd told her I couldn't lend her $5,000 for a car down payment. Why are you telling me this? I asked. Brian exhaled. Because Vanessa told Dad something yesterday. She said, if you don't sign the house over voluntarily, they're going to prove you're mentally incompetent. The word hung in the air like poison. Incompetent? She has a doctor. Some guy she knows. She's going to say you're confused, that you can't manage your finances, that you need someone to make decisions for you, and once they get guardianship, they get everything. I finished his sentence. Yeah. I looked around my kitchen, the coffee maker I'd bought at Goodwill in 2009, the dish towels I'd sewn from old bedsheets, the table with the wobbly leg I'd been meaning to fix since 2012. This was what they thought I couldn't manage? Mom, I have to go. Vanessa's coming back to the car. Just be careful. Don't sign anything. He hung up. I sat there for 5 minutes, maybe 10. The clock on the microwave said 10:47 a.m. In 5 hours, Richard had said. That meant 3 p.m. In 4 hours and 13 minutes, they expected me to be gone. I wasn't going anywhere. I called Melissa. Mom, she answered on the first ring. I heard. Brian texted me. Did he tell you he witnessed the fake signature? A pause. Yes. Mom, I'm so sorry. He's an idiot, but I don't think he understood what he was doing. Do you know about Amanda? She called me last night. She's completely brainwashed. Vanessa's been feeding her lies for months. She's convinced you're some kind of miser hoarding a fortune. I thought about my checking account. $1,847. I'd been proud of that number. It was the most I'd had saved since 2003. What do we do? I asked. I'm already on it. I pulled Vanessa's financials this morning, public records. Mom, she's not a consultant. She's a con artist. She has 4 lawsuits against her in 3 states. Fraud, embezzlement. She ran a fake charity in Wisconsin that stole $90,000 from elderly donors. My blood went cold. And she's engaged to your father. She's not engaged to anyone. I checked marriage records. She's married. To someone in Milwaukee. She never filed for divorce. Bigamy, fraud, forgery. Richard had managed to find the perfect partner. We need proof, Melissa said. Real proof. The kind that stands up in court. I'm driving to Cedar Falls tonight. Don't let anyone in the house until I get there. Amanda's coming tomorrow. Melissa swore under her breath. Then we'll deal with Amanda tomorrow. She hung up. I walked to the living room and looked out the window. The street was empty. Snow covered the sidewalks. Mrs. Patterson's Christmas lights blinked on and off across the road, the same lights she'd hung every December since 1989. Normal life, continuing. My doorbell rang. I looked through the peephole. Richard. Again. This time without Vanessa, but with two men I didn't recognize. One was holding a clipboard. The other had a camera. I didn't open the door. Michelle, we know you're in there, Richard called. This is Mr. Foster from Cedar County Real Estate Appraisal. We need to document the property's condition. I opened the door 6 inches, keeping the chain locked. You're not coming in, I said. Richard smiled. Not the warm smile I'd fallen in love with in 1979. Something thinner, meaner. We have a legal right to inspect the property. It's in the deed. The deed is fake. That's not what the county records say. He pulled out his phone and showed me a screenshot. It was a document from the Cedar County Clerk's website. Property deed, 847 Maple Street. Owner, Richard Hayes. Date recorded, December 10th, 2018. But the deed said it was signed in 2005. You filed this last week, I said. You backdated it. Prove it. Richard's smile widened. You have until 3:00 Michelle. After that, we call the sheriff. The appraiser stepped forward. Ma'am, we're just doing our job. We need to assess the interior for market value. It'll take 20 minutes. I looked at the camera in the other man's hands. They weren't here to appraise anything. They were here to document that I was living in Richard's house without permission, building their case. Get off my porch, I said. I slammed the door, locked it, walked back to the kitchen. My hands were shaking again. I called Gerald Chapman, my lawyer. Mrs. Hayes, I was just about to call you, he said. We have a problem. Richard filed an emergency eviction notice this morning. There's a hearing scheduled for Friday. Friday? That's 3 days away. Yes, and the judge assigned is Franklin Moore. Let's just say he's old-fashioned. He tends to side with whoever has the paperwork, and right now, Richard's paperwork looks legitimate. But it's not. I know. But proving forgery takes time. We need a handwriting expert. We need depositions. We need time I don't have. Exactly. He sighed. Mrs. Hayes, I'm going to be honest. If we can't prove fraud by Friday, Judge Moore might order you to vacate until we resolve this in civil court. That could take months. Months. Months of living where? With what money? On what planet did a 62-year-old woman with $1,847 in savings find a place to live in 3 days? There's one other thing, Gerald said. I found something odd. Vanessa Morgan isn't just Richard's fiancée. She's listed as co-owner on a bank account he opened last month. They've deposited $91,000. From where? That's what's interesting. It came from an LLC registered in Richard's name, Maple Street Holdings, registered on November 30th, 3 weeks ago. He's been planning this for at least a month, I said. Longer. The LLC was funded by a loan, a big one, $150,000, from a private lender in Chicago. Why would someone lend Richard that much money? Because he used your house as collateral. The room spun. He can't do that. It's not his house. According to the forged deed, it is. And Mrs. Hayes? That loan is due in 60 days. If he doesn't pay it back, the lender can foreclose. I understood now. Richard wasn't taking my house to live in it. He was taking it to sell it, to pay off his loan, to walk away with whatever was left after Vanessa took her cut. I was collateral damage. The doorbell rang again. I looked through the peephole. Amanda. She was standing on my porch in a white coat I'd never seen, her dark hair pulled back in a style that looked expensive. Next to her was Vanessa, smiling that same red-lipped smile. I opened the door. Hi, Mom, Amanda said. Her voice was cold, rehearsed. Amanda? I looked at Vanessa, and the con artist. Vanessa's smile didn't falter. Mrs. Hayes, I understand you're upset, but we're here to help you. Help me? Amanda stepped forward. Mom, Vanessa explained everything. About the house, about the money you've been hiding, about how you've been refusing to support your own children. I stared at my daughter. What money? The savings accounts, the investments. Vanessa found records. You have over $200,000 hidden away, and you've been pretending to be poor this whole time. I almost laughed. $200,000? Amanda, I have $1,847 in checking and $600 in savings. That's it. That's not what the bank statements show. Vanessa handed Amanda a folder. Amanda opened it and showed me papers, bank statements. From First National Bank of Cedar Falls, Michelle Hayes, account balance, $183,492. I looked closer, the account number, the dates, the transactions. This isn't my account, I said. It has your name on it, Amanda said. Anyone can fake a document. I grabbed the paper. The logo was slightly blurry. The font was wrong. This is Photoshop. Vanessa stepped forward. Mrs. Hayes, denial is a common symptom of early dementia. We're not here to judge you. We're here to make sure you get the help you need. Dementia. There it was. The plan Brian had warned me about. I'm not signing anything, I said. No one's asking you to sign anything, Vanessa said smoothly. We just want you to see a doctor. A friend of mine, Dr. Philip Marsh. He specializes in cognitive assessments for seniors. Just one appointment. To make sure you're okay. Amanda nodded. Mom, please. We're worried about you. I looked at my youngest daughter, the girl I'd rocked to sleep 1,000 nights. The girl I'd taught to ride a bike, to braid her hair, to balance a checkbook. She was looking at me like I was a stranger, like I was the problem. Get out, I said quietly. Mom, get out of my house. Vanessa put a hand on Amanda's shoulder. It's okay. She needs time to process. Oh, she looked at me. Mrs. Hayes, you should know. Dr. Marsh is prepared to file a report with Adult Protective Services. If you refuse evaluation, they may have to intervene. Let them. They turned to leave, but at the bottom of the porch steps, Vanessa stopped and looked back. You always were easy to fool, she said. The exact same words Richard had said 4 hours earlier. They'd rehearsed it. I closed the door, locked it, walked to my bedroom. I opened the closet and pulled out the old shoebox where I kept important papers. Birth certificates, social security cards, my marriage license from 1981, and underneath it all, a small jewelry receipt from 1995. Goldman's Jewelry, Cedar Falls 1, 14K gold wedding band, $2,100 2 pearl earrings, estate, $6,300 total, $8,400 paid in full. I'd kept it all these years. A reminder of what I'd sacrificed. I took a picture of it with my phone and texted it to Melissa. This is what I have. This is what I gave. This is the truth. She replied immediately. I'm 2 hours away. Don't let anyone in. We fight tomorrow. I sat on my bed, the same bed I'd slept in alone for 15 years, and looked at the clock. 2:47 p.m. In 13 minutes, Richard's deadline would pass. My phone buzzed. Unknown number. I answered. Michelle Hayes? A woman's voice. Official. Yes. This is Deputy Sarah Chen from Cedar County Sheriff's Office. I'm calling to inform you that we've received a request to enforce an eviction at 847 Maple Street. We'll be there at 4 p.m. to ensure peaceful removal of any occupants who... I hung up. I didn't pack a single box. Instead, I sat at my kitchen table and waited. The clock on the microwave changed from 3:47 to 3:48 to 3:49. Outside, the December wind rattled the windows. Snow was starting to fall again. Thick, wet flakes that stuck to the glass. At 3:52, a sheriff's cruiser pulled up in front of my house. I watched through the window as Deputy Chen stepped out. She was young, maybe 30, with her hair pulled back tight. She walked up to my porch slowly, like she didn't want to be here. I opened the door before she could knock. Mrs. Hayes? She said. That's me. She looked uncomfortable. Ma'am, I have an order here to assist in an eviction. The property owner, Richard Hayes, has requested... He's not the property owner. The deed he filed is forged. She glanced down at her clipboard. Ma'am, According to county records can be manipulated. I have a lawyer. We're fighting this. Deputy Chen shifted her weight. I understand, but until a judge rules otherwise, I have to follow the current documentation. Mr. Hayes is waiting in his vehicle. He's asked me to ensure you leave peacefully. I looked past her. Richard's car was parked across the street. I could see him in the driver's seat, Vanessa next to him. They were watching. I'm not leaving, I said. Deputy Chen sighed. Mrs. Hayes, I don't want to make this harder than it has to be. If you refuse to vacate, I'll have to... A car pulled up behind the cruiser. Fast, tires crunching on snow. Melissa. She got out carrying a leather briefcase I'd never seen before, the kind lawyers carry on TV. Her face was set, determined. She walked straight up to the porch. Deputy, I'm Melissa Hayes, Mrs. Hayes' attorney. I'm filing an emergency stay of eviction based on documented fraud. She pulled papers from her briefcase. This is a motion filed with Judge Franklin Moore's office at 3:15 this afternoon. Until the hearing on Friday, no eviction can proceed. Deputy Chen took the papers and scanned them. Her expression changed. This looks legitimate, she said slowly. It is legitimate. The deed Mr. Hayes filed was backdated and fraudulently notarized. We have evidence. If you proceed with this eviction, you'll be participating in the execution of a forged document. The deputy looked at me, then at Melissa, then at Richard's car across the street. I need to make a call, she said. She walked back to her cruiser. I could see her on the radio talking to someone. Richard got out of his car and started walking toward us, but Deputy Chen held up a hand to stop him. Melissa turned to me. Are you okay? I'm still here, I said. That's something. It's everything. She lowered her voice. Mom, I found more. Vanessa's married to a guy named Dennis Morgan in Milwaukee. They ran a fake investment scheme together in 2014. He's in prison. She's not. She testified against him to get immunity. So she's done this before. She's a professional. She finds men with assets, convinces them to sign things, strips them clean and disappears. Dad's just her latest mark. Why would she target your father? He doesn't have anything. No, but you do. A house worth $380,000, fully paid off. That's a big score for someone like her. I thought about Richard in that Italian suitcase. The expensive coat Vanessa wore, the confidence in their voices. She's using him, I said. Completely. And once she gets what she wants, she'll leave him with nothing, just like she did to the 3 guys before him. Deputy Chen walked back to the porch. Mrs. Hayes, I've spoken with my supervisor. Given the pending legal motion, we're not proceeding with eviction today, but I need to inform Mr. Hayes. She walked across the street. I watched through the window as she spoke to Richard. His face went red. He started yelling. I couldn't hear the words, but I could see the anger. Vanessa put a hand on his arm, calming him down. She was smiling. They got in the car and drove away. Melissa and I went inside. We have until Friday, she said. That's 2 days to build a case that destroys them. Can we do it? We have to. She opened her briefcase on my kitchen table, the same table where I'd served her breakfast for 18 years. I've subpoenaed Richard's phone records. I've contacted the notary who supposedly witnessed the 2005 deed. She died in 2016. I've filed a complaint with the state bar about the lawyer who filed the paperwork for Richard. And I've sent Vanessa's criminal history to the county prosecutor. I looked at my daughter, really looked at her. She had my eyes, my stubborn jaw, but she had something I'd lost years ago, fire. When did you become so strong? I asked. She smiled, but it was sad. I learned from you, Mom. You just forgot you taught me. That night, Melissa slept in her old bedroom, the one I'd kept exactly as she'd left it in 2008. I lay in my bed, staring at the ceiling, listening to the house settle. Every creak sounded like footsteps. Every gust of wind sounded like someone trying the door. At 2 a.m., I got up. I couldn't sleep. I went to the kitchen and made tea. Through the window, I could see snow falling in the streetlight's glow. Peaceful, quiet, like the world wasn't trying to steal everything I had. I thought about the shovel leaning against the garage, the same shovel I'd used for 15 winters to clear the driveway alone. Richard used to do it when we were married. Then one day he was gone, and it became my job. Every winter morning at 6 a.m. before work, I'd bundle up and scrape ice and push snow. My back ached, my hands went numb, but I did it because I had to, because there was no one else. I'd told myself it was temporary, that Richard would come back, that he'd apologize and take over the shovel again, and I could go back to being the person I was before, the person who made breakfast and folded laundry and didn't have to carry everything alone. But he never came back. And I kept shoveling. I heard footsteps behind me. Melissa, in flannel pajamas. "Can't sleep?" she asked, too much in my head. She sat down across from me. "Mom, I need to ask you something, and I need you to be honest." "Okay. Do you want to forgive them?" I looked at my tea. "Who?" "Brian, Amanda, even Dad. If they apologized tomorrow, if they admitted they were wrong, would you take them back?" I thought about Brian's phone call, the guilt in his voice. I thought about Amanda standing on my porch, convinced I was hiding money. I thought about Richard's face when he said I was easy to fool. "I don't know," I said finally. "Part of me wants my family back, the family I thought I had. But that family never existed, did it? I was just pretending." "You weren't pretending. You were loving them. They're the ones who pretended. Maybe I made it too easy for them. Maybe I should have said no more often. Maybe—" "Mom, stop." Melissa's voice was firm. "You did nothing wrong. You worked 2 jobs to keep us fed. You sold your jewelry to pay for Brian's surgery. You drove 6 hours to see Amanda graduate. You were a perfect mother. They're the ones who failed you. Then why does it hurt so much? Because you love them anyway. That's not a weakness, Mom. That's the strongest thing you could have done." We sat in silence. The clock ticked. The snow fell. "What happens on Friday?" I asked. "We go to court. We show Judge Moore the evidence. We prove that Richard and Vanessa are criminals. And we get your house back. And if we lose?" Melissa's jaw tightened. "We won't." But I heard the doubt in her voice. The next morning, Thursday, I woke up to my phone ringing. Unknown number again. I almost didn't answer. "Hello? Mrs. Hayes? This is Dr. Philip Marsh. I believe Vanessa Morgan mentioned me." "The dementia doctor." "What do you want?" I asked. "I wanted to reach out personally. Miss Morgan expressed concerns about your cognitive health, and I'd like to offer a free evaluation. No pressure, no judgment. Just a conversation to make sure I'm fine. I understand this might feel intrusive, but at your age, cognitive decline can be subtle. Family members often notice changes before the patient does. Memory lapses, confusion about finances, difficulty with daily tasks." I said I'm fine. "Mrs. Hayes, if you refuse evaluation, I'm legally obligated to file a report with Adult Protective Services. They may determine that you need involuntary assessment." Involuntary. The word made my skin crawl. You can't do that without evidence. "I have statements from your daughter Amanda and your son Brian. Both have expressed concerns about your mental state. Combined with your refusal to cooperate, that's sufficient cause." My hands started shaking. "This is a setup. This is medical protocol, Mrs. Hayes. I'm trying to help you." I hung up. Melissa was already awake, sitting at the kitchen table with her laptop. I told her about the call. "He's bluffing," she said. "Doctors can't force evaluations without a court order. He's trying to scare you into signing something. It's working." She pulled up something on her screen. "Mom, look at this. Dr. Philip Marsh, licensed in 2017. That's only 7 years ago. He's not a psychiatrist. He's a nurse practitioner. And guess what? He's been reprimanded twice by the state medical board for fraudulent billing. Vanessa found a crooked doctor. She found someone desperate enough to lie for money." Melissa started typing. "I'm forwarding this to the prosecutor. This is conspiracy to commit fraud. Multiple counts." My phone buzzed. Text from Brian. "Mom, please don't go to court tomorrow. Dad has something planned." It's going to get worse. I showed Melissa. What does he mean? She asked. I didn't know, but something in my stomach twisted. That afternoon, Melissa left to meet with the prosecutor. I was alone in the house again. I walked through the rooms slowly. The living room where I'd rocked 3 babies to sleep. The kitchen where I'd packed thousands of school lunches. The bedroom where I'd cried myself to sleep after Richard left. Every corner held a memory. Most of them hurt now. At 4 p.m., someone knocked on the door. I looked through the peephole. Brian. He was alone. No Vanessa. No Richard. Just my son standing on my porch in a coat I'd bought him for Christmas 3 years ago. I opened the door. Mom, he said, I need to tell you something. I didn't invite Brian in right away. I just stood there, holding the door half open, looking at my son, the boy I'd raised alone, the man who'd helped Richard steal my house. Why are you here? I asked. Because I can't do this anymore. His voice cracked. Mom, I made a mistake. A huge one. You witnessed a forged signature. I know, and I'm sorry, but there's more. Things you don't know yet. I looked past him to the street. No cars, no Vanessa, no Richard. Are they watching you? I asked. Probably. Vanessa tracks my phone, but I turned it off before I came here. He pulled it from his pocket and showed me the blank screen. Mom, please, 5 minutes. That's all I need. Against every instinct screaming at me, I stepped aside. He came in, stood in the living room like a stranger, feet together, hands in pockets, looking everywhere except at me. What do you want to tell me? I asked. Brian sat on the edge of the couch, the same couch where I'd read him bedtime stories 25 years ago. Dad didn't just forge one deed, he said. He forged 3, the 2005 one you know about. But there's also one from 2011 and one from 2016, all backdated, all with your signature copied from old documents. My legs went weak. I sat down in my recliner. Why 3? Insurance. If one got challenged, he'd have backups. Vanessa planned it. She's been working on this for over a year. A year? Brian nodded. She found Dad in Milwaukee at a casino in 2017. She researched him, found out he had an ex-wife with a paid-off house. She started dating him specifically to get access to you. The calculation of it made me sick. How do you know all this? I asked, because I heard them talking last week. They didn't know I was in the house. Vanessa was on the phone with someone, her lawyer, I think. She said, the old woman's house is worth $380K. Once we flip it, I take 60%, Richard gets 20, and the lawyer gets 20. She was laughing, Mom. Laughing about how easy you were to fool. There it was again. That phrase. Did Richard know? About Vanessa's plan? He knew. He's desperate, Mom. He owes $190,000 to someone in Chicago. Some loan shark who threatened to break his legs if he didn't pay by January 15th. That's why he's doing this. 5 weeks. Richard had 5 weeks to steal my house, sell it, and pay off his debts. Why are you telling me this now? I asked. Why not last week? Or last month? Brian's face crumpled. Because I thought you'd be okay. I thought you'd move into an apartment, downsize, and it wouldn't be a big deal. I didn't understand what this house meant to you until... He stopped. Until what? Until I went through the basement yesterday. Dad asked me to pack up your old files. And I found boxes. Boxes full of receipts. Medical bills from my appendix surgery in 1995. Tuition payments for my community college. A receipt from a jewelry store where you sold $8,400 worth of jewelry. The receipt. The one I'd photographed 2 days ago. You kept everything, Brian whispered. Every receipt, every bill, every sacrifice you made. And I saw the total. The number you'd written on a piece of paper in the last box. $847,293. That's how much you spent on us. On me and Melissa and Amanda. Over 38 years. He was crying now. Full, ugly sobs. I called you selfish. I believed Vanessa when she said you were hiding money. And the whole time, you were giving us everything. I didn't move. Didn't reach for him. I just sat there, watching my son break down in the living room where I'd bandaged his scraped knees and taught him to tie his shoes. Mom, I'm sorry. I know that's not enough, but I'm so sorry. What about Amanda? I asked. My voice sounded cold even to me. She still believes Vanessa. She thinks you're lying about the money. I tried to show her the receipts, but she wouldn't look. And Richard? He's going through with it. Tomorrow in court, he's going to play an audio recording. My stomach dropped. What recording? Vanessa made one. She edited together clips of you talking, from phone calls, from when you answered the door. She made it sound like you're confused, like you can't remember signing documents, like you're admitting to cognitive problems. Deepfake audio, of course. Will it work? I asked. I don't know, but it sounds real, Mom. Really real. I closed my eyes. Melissa had evidence. She had Vanessa's criminal record, the fake notaries, the forged deeds. But would that be enough against a recording of my own voice supposedly confessing to dementia? There's one more thing, Brian said quietly. Dad opened a trust account. He put the house in it yesterday, using the 2005 deed as proof. The trust is set up to sell the property automatically on December 23rd. That's 5 days from now. Can he do that? If the judge doesn't stop him tomorrow, yes. The sale's already arranged. A buyer in Des Moines offered $420,000 cash. Quick close, no inspection. Richard wasn't just stealing my house. He was selling it out from under me before I could fight back. How do I stop this? I asked. Brian pulled a USB drive from his pocket. This is a copy of everything I found in Dad's laptop. The fake deeds, emails between him and Vanessa, bank transfers showing the $150,000 loan, and the contract with the loan shark in Chicago. He set it on the coffee table between us. I'm testifying tomorrow, he said. Against Dad, against Vanessa. I'll tell the judge everything. They'll destroy you for that. I know, but I'd rather lose Dad than lose you. It was the first time in years that Brian had chosen me. I picked up the USB drive. Does Vanessa know you have this? Not yet, but she'll figure it out soon. That's why I had to come now. My phone rang. Unknown number. I answered. Michelle Hayes? A man's voice. Deep. Angry. Who is this? Someone who'd like to know where Richard Hayes is. He owes me $190,000, and he's not answering his phone. The loan shark. I don't know where he is, I said. That's unfortunate. Because I've been watching your house for the past 3 days. I saw Richard go in yesterday. I saw him leave with a blonde woman, and I saw your son go in just now. My blood turned to ice. He was outside right now, watching. What do you want? I asked. I want my money. And if Richard doesn't pay me by January 15th, I'm going to take it from the house he keeps telling me belongs to him. So you'd better hope that sale goes through, Mrs. Hayes. Because if it doesn't, I'm coming for my collateral. He hung up. Brian's face was white. That was him? He's been watching the house. Mom, you're not safe here. If that sale falls through, then I'll deal with it. I stood up. But right now we have bigger problems. Melissa needs to see this. I held up the USB drive. Brian stood. I should go. If Vanessa realizes I've been here too long. Brian. I stopped him. Why did you really come here? Not just to give me the evidence. Tell me the truth. He looked at the floor. Because I heard you on the phone yesterday when you talked to that lawyer. You said you'd lost your family, that the family you thought you had never existed. He looked up. And I realized I was part of the reason you felt that way. I needed you to know that I still love you, even though I don't deserve for you to love me back. I didn't hug him. I didn't say it was okay, because it wasn't. But I didn't turn him away either. Go, I said, before someone sees you. And Brian, don't tell Richard about the USB drive. I won't. He left. I locked the door behind him and called Melissa immediately. Mom? What's wrong? Brian was just here. He gave me everything. All the evidence we need. I heard her exhale. Thank God. Is he testifying tomorrow? Yes. But Melissa, there's more. I told her about the audio recording, the automatic trust sale, the loan shark watching the house. She was quiet for a long moment. Mom, this is bigger than fraud. This is organized crime. We need to call the FBI. The FBI? A $150,000 loan from an unlicensed lender using a forged deed as collateral? That's wire fraud, racketeering. The second we prove that deed is fake, Richard and Vanessa are going to federal prison. What about the loan shark? If the house stays in your name, he can't touch it. He has no legal claim. He'd have to sue Richard personally, and good luck collecting from a man who's about to be arrested. For the first time in 3 days, I felt something other than fear. I felt hope. That night, Melissa and I went through every file on Brian's USB drive. Emails between Richard and Vanessa dating back to March 2017, bank statements showing wire transfers from the fake LLC, text messages where Vanessa coached Richard on what to say to me, screenshots of the forged deeds with metadata showing they'd been created in November 2018, not 2005, 2011, or 2016, and most damning of all, a recorded phone call between Vanessa and her previous victim, a man named Dennis Morgan, her actual husband, calling from prison. "Did you set up the Hayes deal?" he asked. "Almost done," Vanessa replied. "The old lady's clueless. I'll clear $200K easy. Remember, you owe me 40%. That was the deal." I remember. She was still working with her imprisoned husband, still running cons even after he'd gone to jail. Melissa uploaded everything to a secure server and sent copies to the county prosecutor, the state attorney general, and the FBI field office in Des Moines. "It's out of our hands now," she said. "The feds will move fast once they see this." Will they move before tomorrow? I don't know. We went to bed at midnight. I didn't sleep. At 3 a.m., my phone buzzed. Text from unknown number. "This is Deputy Chen. Thought you should know. Richard Hayes was just arrested at a motel in Waterloo. Warrant for fraud and identity theft. Vanessa Morgan fled. We're looking for her now." I sat up in bed, hands shaking. Richard was in jail. I walked to Melissa's room and woke her up. "It's happening," I said. "They arrested him." She grabbed her phone and checked her email. The prosecutor filed emergency charges. The FBI got involved 2 hours ago. She looked up at me. "Mom, you won. The house is yours. The sale is canceled. It's over." But I didn't feel like I'd won. I felt hollow. At 8 a.m., my doorbell rang. Amanda. She was crying. "Mom," she said when I opened the door. "I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry." I looked at Amanda standing on my porch in yesterday's clothes, mascara streaked down her face, shivering in the December cold. She looked like she'd been crying for hours. "Can I come in?" she whispered. I didn't answer right away. I just stood there, remembering the last time she'd been on this porch, 2 days ago, with Vanessa, accusing me of hiding money, calling me a liar. "Please, Mom." I stepped aside. She came in and stood in the living room, hugging herself. Melissa appeared in the hallway, still in her pajamas. "Amanda," she said coldly. "Mel, Amanda's voice broke. "I made a terrible mistake." "You think?" Melissa crossed her arms. "You stood right here and called Mom a thief. You believed a con artist over your own mother. I know, and I'm sorry. I was so stupid." Amanda turned to me. "Mom, Vanessa showed me bank statements. Photos of properties she said you owned. She told me you'd been lying to us for years about being poor. She said you had money hidden and you were just too selfish to help your own kids." "And you believed her," I said. "Yes. Because I wanted to believe her." Amanda's voice cracked. "Because I was angry at you, Mom, for saying no when I asked to borrow money for a car, for not helping me pay off my student loans, for always being so broke all the time when Amanda and I had so much." "Who's Amanda?" Melissa asked sharply. "Vanessa. Sorry. She told me to call her Amanda. Said we were like sisters." My daughter laughed bitterly. "God, I'm such an idiot." I sat down in my recliner. "When did you figure it out?" "Last night, around 2 a.m., I got a call from a number I didn't recognize. It was a man named Dennis Morgan. He said he was Vanessa's husband." Melissa and I exchanged glances. "He told me Vanessa was a con artist, that she'd done this to 3 other families before ours, that she was using Dad to steal your house, and once she got the money, she'd disappear." Amanda wiped her eyes. "I didn't believe him at first. I hung up, but then I started looking online, and I found everything. Court records, news articles, photos of Vanessa with other men she'd scammed. One of them killed himself after she took everything he had. The room went silent. I called Dad's phone, Amanda continued. A police officer answered. Said Dad had been arrested for fraud. I drove to Waterloo. They wouldn't let me see him, but they told me what he'd done. The forged deeds, the fake signatures, the plan to sell your house. She looked at me with raw, desperate eyes. Mom, I'm so sorry. I should have trusted you. I should have known. I didn't say anything. I couldn't. Melissa spoke instead. Where's Brian? At a hotel in Cedar Falls. He's terrified. Vanessa called him this morning and threatened him. Said if he testified against her, she'd make sure he went to prison too. She can't do that, Melissa said. Brian has immunity. The prosecutor offered it last night in exchange for his testimony. Vanessa doesn't know that. She thinks she still has control. Amanda turned to me again. Mom, please say something. Yell at me. Tell me I'm an idiot. Tell me you hate me. Just say something. I looked at my youngest daughter, the girl I'd driven 6 hours to see graduate nursing school, the girl I'd taught to braid hair and ride a bike and stand up for herself. I don't hate you, I said finally, but I don't trust you either. Not yet. Amanda flinched like I'd slapped her. That's fair, she whispered. You chose a stranger over me, I continued. You believed lies because they were more convenient than the truth. You stood in my living room and called me selfish while I've spent 38 years giving you everything I had. I know. Do you? Do you really understand what you did? Amanda nodded, tears streaming. I broke your heart. You did. And I don't know if I can fix that. I don't expect you to forgive me right away. I needed you to know I see it now. I see what you sacrificed. I see what I almost helped them take from you. She pulled something from her pocket, a folded piece of paper. I found this in Dad's car last night. I think you should have it. She handed it to me. I unfolded it. It was a list in Richard's handwriting. Expenses: Michelle Hayes, 1981-2019. Mortgage payments: $127,000 kids' education, $89,400 medical bills, $74,200 food household, $412,000 car maintenance, $31,700, MISC $113,000, total $847,293. Below that, in different ink, Richard had written, "She gave everything." And I took it all. My hands started shaking. He knew? I whispered. Amanda nodded. I think he always knew. That's why he was so desperate to justify taking the house. Because if he didn't get the money, he'd have to admit to himself what he'd done to you. Melissa took the paper from my hands and stared at it. This is evidence. This is Richard admitting. She stopped. Mom, this is huge. With this, we can argue for damages. Emotional distress. Restitution. I don't want his money, I said. He doesn't have any anyway. The court can garnish his wages for the rest of his life. Let him keep his wages. I just want him gone. At 10:00 a.m., we drove to the courthouse. Judge Franklin Moore's courtroom was small, wood paneling, uncomfortable benches, American flag in the corner. Richard was brought in wearing an orange jumpsuit, hands cuffed. He looked smaller than I remembered, older, defeated. He didn't look at me. The prosecutor, a woman named Janet Kowalski, presented the evidence methodically. The forged deeds with metadata showing they'd been created in November 2018. The notary who died in 2016, but whose signature appeared on the 2005 deed. The bank records showing the $150,000 loan from an unlicensed lender in Chicago. The emails between Richard and Vanessa planning the theft. Then Melissa stood up. Your Honor, I'd like to enter additional evidence. A handwritten document created by the defendant, Richard Hayes, acknowledging the financial abuse of my mother over 38 years. She handed the judge Richard's list. Judge Moore read it slowly. His expression changed. Mr. Hayes, he said. Did you write this? Richard's lawyer, a public defender who looked exhausted, whispered to him. Richard nodded. Yes, Your Honor. And is the figure accurate? $847,293 spent by Mrs. Hayes to support your children while you were absent? Yes. And you attempted to steal her home, the home she paid for with this money, To settle gambling debts. Richard's voice was barely audible. Yes. Judge Moore set the paper down. Mr. Hayes, in my 30 years on the bench, I have seen many cases of financial abuse, but I have never seen a case where the perpetrator documented his own crime so clearly. He looked at me. Mrs. Hayes, I am ruling in your favor on all counts. The deeds filed by Mr. Hayes are declared fraudulent and void. The house at 847 Maple Street belongs solely to you. Furthermore, I am ordering Mr. Hayes to pay restitution in the amount of $200,000 to be paid in monthly installments over the next 20 years. Richard's head dropped. Additionally, the judge continued, I am forwarding this case to the FBI for federal prosecution. Wire fraud, identity theft, and conspiracy charges will be filed separately. The gavel came down. It was over. Richard was led out. As he passed my seat, he stopped. The bailiff allowed him one moment. Michelle, he said quietly. I'm sorry. I looked at him, really looked at him. The man I'd married at 25. The man I'd trusted to build a life with. The man who'd walked away and come back only to destroy me. I don't forgive you, I said. He nodded. I know. They took him away. Outside the courthouse, news cameras were waiting. Apparently, the case had made local headlines. Elderly woman fights off home theft by estranged husband and convicted con artist. I didn't talk to the reporters. Melissa did. Brian was waiting by my car. He looked terrified. Mom, I testified. I told them everything. I know. Thank you. Are you still mad at me? I thought about the question. Was I mad? Yes. Hurt? Yes. But was I willing to lose my son forever over his mistake? I'm not ready to forgive you yet, I said, but I'm not closing the door either. His face crumpled with relief. That's enough. That's more than I deserve. Amanda appeared next to him. Mom, I know I don't have the right to ask, but can I come visit you sometime? Not now, but eventually? I looked at my two youngest children, both broken, both sorry, both waiting to see if I'd reject them the way Richard had rejected me. Eventually, I said. It wasn't forgiveness, but it was a start. That night, Melissa and I sat in my living room, in my house, that no one could take from me ever again. What are you going to do now? She asked. I don't know. Stay here, I guess. You could sell it, take the money and start over somewhere new. I looked around. The brown carpet, the flickering light, the couch I'd reupholstered myself. Every inch of this house was soaked in memory, some good, most painful. Maybe, I said. But not yet. My phone buzzed. Text from unknown number. This is Dennis Morgan, Vanessa's husband. She's in custody. Caught trying to board a flight to Mexico. Thought you'd want to know. I showed Melissa. It's really over, she said. Yeah, I said. It really is. But I didn't feel victorious. I felt tired. 3 months later, on a cold March morning, I stood in the driveway of 847 Maple Street and watched the moving truck pull away. The house had sold for $420,000, the same price Richard's buyer had offered, but this time the money was mine. After lawyer fees and repairs, I'd cleared $387,000. More money than I'd ever seen in my life. I'd bought a small chalet outside Cedar Falls for $185,000. 2 bedrooms, 1 bathroom, big windows facing the hills. It was quiet, clean, mine. Melissa helped me load the last box into my car. You okay, Mom? She asked. I looked back at the brick house one more time. 40 years of my life had happened inside those walls. 40 years of sacrifice and loneliness and love that wasn't returned. I'm okay, I said, and I meant it. The chalet smelled like fresh paint and new wood. I spent the first week arranging furniture. Most of it new, bought with money I'd earned by surviving. The old couch from 847 Maple Street went to Goodwill. The wobbly kitchen table went to an estate sale. I kept only 3 things: my wedding photo from 1981, the receipt from the jewelry store in 1995, and the list Richard had written acknowledging what I'd sacrificed. Those 3 pieces of paper sat in a frame on my mantel, not as decoration, as evidence. Evidence that I had loved with everything I had, and survived when that love was weaponized against me. 2 weeks after I moved in, Brian knocked on my door. "Mom," he said, "I know I don't have the right to ask, but can I come in?" I stepped aside. He looked around the chalet, at the bright kitchen, the fireplace, the view of rolling hills through floor-to-ceiling windows. "It's beautiful," he said. "It's mine," I replied. He nodded. "I wanted to give you this." He handed me an envelope. Inside was a check for $500 and a handwritten note. "Mom, I know money can't fix what I did, but I want to try to make it right. This is the first payment. I'll send $500 every month for the next 8 years. It's not enough to repay the $50,000 you spent on me personally, but it's what I can afford. I also wanted to ask if I could visit you. Not often. Just once a month. I want my son, your grandson, to know the grandmother I almost destroyed. I understand if you say no." Brian, I looked at the check. $500. The same amount I'd sent him dozens of times when he'd called asking for rent money, for car insurance, for emergencies that were never really emergencies. "What's his name?" I asked. "Your son." Brian pulled out his phone and showed me a photo. A little boy, maybe 2 years old, with dark curls and my eyes. "Henry," he said. "After Grandpa. My father had died in 1998. I'd sold my mother's china to pay for his funeral because Richard's check had bounced." "You named him Henry," I repeated. "I wanted him to be named after someone good. Someone who kept his promises." Brian's voice cracked. "I know I'm not like that, but I'm trying to be." I looked at the photo again. Henry was laughing in the picture, holding a stuffed bear. "You can visit," I said. "Once a month, Sunday afternoons, 2 hours." Brian's face flooded with relief. "Thank you, Mom. Thank you." "But Brian," I added, "if you miss a single payment, if you lie to me once, if you bring drama to my door, this ends. Do you understand?" "I understand." "Good." He left. I deposited the check that afternoon. Amanda called 2 weeks later. "Mom, it's me. I know. Can I come see you, please?" I thought about saying no, thought about letting her suffer the way I'd suffered. But then I remembered what Melissa had said 3 months ago. They're the ones who failed you. But that doesn't mean you have to fail yourself. "Saturday," I said, 10 a.m. Don't be late. She arrived at 9:47, carrying a bakery box and a potted plant. "I didn't know what to bring," she said nervously. I opened the door wider. "Come in." We sat in my living room, the new one, with furniture that didn't sag and windows that didn't leak. She looked around like she was seeing me for the first time. "This place is really nice, Mom." "It is. I'm glad you got out of that old house. I know it had a lot of bad memories." "It had good ones too," I said, but I was ready to let go. Amanda set the bakery box on the coffee table. "I brought cinnamon rolls, from that place on 5th Street you used to take me to when I was little." I opened the box. They smelled exactly like I remembered. "Amanda, why are you here?" I asked. "Because I miss you." Her eyes filled with tears. "Because I wake up every day knowing I almost destroyed you, and I can't live with that anymore." "You didn't destroy me. You hurt me. There's a difference." "How do I fix it?" "You don't. Not right away. You show up. You tell the truth. You stop expecting me to make you feel better about what you did." She nodded. "Okay. I can do that. Can you?" "I'm going to try." We ate cinnamon rolls in silence. When she left, she hugged me. Tight. Desperate. Like she was afraid I'd disappear. "I love you, Mom," she whispered. I didn't say it back. Not yet. In April, Melissa called with news. "Mom, Richard took a plea deal. 3 years in federal prison. No parole. And Vanessa?" 7 years. She had priors. The judge threw the book at her. 3 years. 7 years. Richard would be 67 when he got out. Vanessa would be 65. "How do you feel?" Melissa asked. "I don't know. Empty? Relieved? Both?" "That's normal." "Is it?" "Mom, you survived something most people don't survive. You're allowed to feel however you feel." After we hung up, I sat on my porch and watched the sun set over the hills. For the first time in 40 years, I wasn't thinking about what Richard needed, or what Brian wanted, or what Amanda expected. I was thinking about what I wanted. And what I wanted was this: peace. In May, Brian brought Henry to visit. The little boy toddled around my living room, grabbing at furniture, laughing at nothing. I watched Brian watch his son, and I saw something I hadn't seen in years: love without calculation. Love that gave without expecting return. "Mom," Brian said as he was leaving, "thank you for giving me another chance." "Don't waste it," I said. "I won't." He sent the $500 check every month, like clockwork. No excuses, no drama. Amanda visited every other Saturday. She brought groceries, helped with yard work, sat quietly when I didn't feel like talking. She never asked me to forgive her. She just showed up. In June, I hired a financial advisor, a woman named Patricia Chen who specialized in helping seniors manage inheritance and savings. "Mrs. Hayes," she said during our first meeting, "you have $387,000 in liquid assets, plus your home valued at $185,000. With smart investments, you could live very comfortably for the rest of your life." "What about my grandchildren?" I asked. "You could set up education trusts, $50,000 for each grandchild. They'd have full access at age 25. I thought about Henry, about the grandson I barely knew, about the future I'd almost lost. "Do it," I said. In July, I started volunteering at the Cedar Falls Women's Shelter. I taught financial literacy classes: how to open a bank account, how to build credit, how to recognize financial abuse. I told my story to women who were living it. Women with black eyes and empty wallets. Women who'd been told they were worthless by men who'd stolen everything. "You are not worthless," I told them. "You survived. That makes you priceless." One woman, a 54-year-old named Karen, approached me after class. "How did you do it?" she asked. "How did you walk away?" "I stopped believing his version of me," I said, "and I started believing my own." In August, I received a letter from Richard. It was postmarked from the federal prison in Leavenworth. "Michelle, I know you don't want to hear from me. I know I destroyed any right I had to speak to you. But I need to say this. I was wrong. About everything. About leaving you. About coming back. About trying to take the house. I was desperate and selfish and cruel. You deserved better. You always did. I don't expect forgiveness. I don't even deserve it. But I wanted you to know that I see it now. Everything you gave, everything I took. I see it, and I'm sorry. Richard." I read the letter 3 times. Then I put it in a drawer and never read it again. He wanted absolution. I didn't owe him that. In September, on a Sunday afternoon, Brian showed up with Henry and a snow shovel. "Mom, I know winter's still a few months away, but I wanted to leave this here, for when the snow comes." I looked at the shovel. Brand new, bright red, with a fiberglass handle. "You don't have to do that," I said. "I know, but I want to. Every winter, I'll come clear your driveway. Every Sunday. For as long as you'll let me." I thought about the old shovel at 847 Maple Street, the one I'd used alone for 15 winters, the one that had become a symbol of everything I'd carried by myself. "Okay," I said. He smiled. It was real. In October, Amanda called with news. "Mom, I'm engaged." "Congratulations." "I wanted to ask you something. Would you come to the wedding?" I paused. "Are you inviting Richard?" "No, he's in prison. And even if he wasn't, no, this is my day. I want my mom there." "Then I'll be there," she cried. "Thank you, Mom." In November, the first snow fell. Brian showed up with Henry at 7 a.m. and cleared my entire driveway without asking. I watched from the kitchen window as Henry threw snowballs at his father, laughing. When they finished, I brought them hot chocolate. "Mom," Brian said, "I've been paying you for 10 months now, $5,000 so far. I wanted to ask, do you think I'll ever finish?" And I looked at him, at the man he was trying to become. "You've got 92 months left," I said. "That's 7 years and 8 months. "I know. I just wondered if—" He stopped. "If you think I can do it, I think you'll try. That's all I can ask." He nodded. "That's fair. On December 18th, 2019, exactly 1 year after Richard had walked into my old house with his Italian suitcase and forged deed, I sat in my chalet and made a list. What I lost: a marriage that was already dead, children who had to learn to see me as human, a house full of painful memories, the illusion that sacrifice equals love. What I gained: a home that's truly mine, financial independence, boundaries that protect me, the knowledge that I can survive anything. What I'm still learning: how to accept love without paying for it, how to forgive without forgetting, how to trust again. At the bottom, I wrote one more line: they almost destroyed me. But almost doesn't count. I folded the paper and put it in the frame with the other 3 documents. Evidence, not of what they did to me, but of what I did for myself. That night, my phone rang. Unknown number. I almost didn't answer. Hello, Mrs. Hayes? This is Janet Kowalski, the prosecutor. I wanted to let you know, Vanessa Morgan is requesting to speak with you. She says she has information about Richard's loan shark that might help protect you. My stomach tightened. What kind of information? She won't say unless you agree to visit her in prison. I looked out my window at the snow falling softly over the hills, at the life I'd built from the rubble of my old one. Tell her no, I said. Are you sure? If the loan shark is still a threat? I'm sure. Whatever she wants, I don't need it. I'm done with that life. I hung up, because the truth was simpler than Vanessa could understand. I didn't survive by fighting every battle. I survived by walking away from the ones that